Ladies and gentlemen, Psalms 84:4 says, "Blessed are they that dwell in your house, O God. They will still be praising you." Selah. What is the house of God? I'm going to tell you what it is. It's His character. It's love, peace, gentleness, patience, kindness, humility. These are strong characteristics. And when you abide in these things, you abide in the house of God. If you want to know more about God, just ask Him. If you want to know more about Jesus, just ask Him. It's that simple. First Take talked about Floyd Mayweather's legacy. I want you to listen to this. My inputs will come in as the video goes on. Let's go.
Floyd Mayweather stopped Conor McGregor in the 10th round to improve to 50-0 in what he says will be his final fight. I actually believe him this time, Max. What's his legacy?
Well, he's one of the great pure boxers who ever lived. He has never cheated himself. He always was in condition. He had no off nights. That's why he won every fight. It's one of the reasons. Not because he's one of the best to ever do it, and because he was always prepared over a very long amateur and pro career. Amazing.
Absolutely agree with Max Kellerman on all those points. Let's keep it rolling.
Another reason is he carefully selected opponents, knew when and where when and who to fight.
Let me stop right there. That is a common thing I'm listening to a lot of people say. How he carefully selected his opponents. Now I did a video on Floyd Mayweather, the cherry picker. Alright, you can go ahead and check out that video if you want. But I'm going to address why Max Kellerman is mostly wrong, but he is partially correct about that. Okay?
And basically changed the paradigm in boxing. I'll translate. He flipped the script. I mean, really, boxing is basically, and this is just the way it is. I'm a huge boxing fan, and I make no apologies about it. But it is fans and networks essentially exploiting fighters. That's how it works. We demand a level of dedication and risk taking with your health that's insane, right? Like someone's getting their head beaten every which way, and if you quit, you don't have heart. You can't be a great fighter, which is true, by the way. It's a blood sport. And usually fighters wind up broke and punch drunk. And Floyd Mayweather flipped the script. He said, no, I'm not going to let the game play me. I'm going to play the game. So he gets out, apparently, with all his marbles. I mean, we have to see the long-term effects of punches that he did take, both in fights and in sparring. We'll see. But he seems to be in good health. He made a ton of money. He didn't do what everyone wanted him to do. He was the one dictating what he was going to do.
Again, I don't 100% agree with Max on that. Yes, he did dictate some. But I disagree on he did not do what people wanted him to do with certain things. And I'll especially when it comes to the actual fights and matchmaking that was being arranged, I'm going to be very specific on these things. That ties into what he said earlier about him carefully selecting his opponents. I want to say that those two statements, if they're just general sweeping statements, are false. Let's go on.
And he left a blueprint for fighters, which might not be in the best interest of boxing, fans, or networks, but maybe is in the best interest of fighters, at least in the short run. Don't let the game play you. Play the game. And that's his legacy as much as anything else.
Let's go to Stephen A. Smith and what he has to say about Floyd Mayweather's legacy. Now, I want you to just understand, I skipped through a lot of stuff because basically Stephen A. Smith summarizes it here.
In doing so. Now, granted, the timing of fights may have been a bit favorable to him as opposed to us as fans.
I disagree with that statement again. That's a general sweeping statement. There is one incident where I think the timing of the fight didn't suit the fans exactly when they wanted it. And I don't believe that it favored him in any way. But that's it. All the other fights, I totally disagree with Stephen A. Smith on that point.
But he did get in the ring with Oscar De La Hoya. He did get in the ring with Ricky Hatton. He did get in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. He did get in the ring with Manny Pacquiao. And at the end of the day, he ended up undefeated in 49 fights. Still not willing to give him the 50 for Saturday night's exhibition. That's how I feel. I'm just not changing my mind about that. It was an exhibition as opposed to a boxing match to me. But in the end, I look at him and I say he's unblemished, he's undefeated, and he did so while making more money than any boxer in history because he convinced you to hate him so much that you paid to see somebody else beat him.
That's not...
Okay. Now, I like Stephen A.'s points, but I don't think he's correct in his points. I hate to say it like that, but I don't think he's correct in a point. Let me just get to the point that Stephen A. Smith I disagree with. I disagree that Floyd Mayweather, okay, didn't give the fans the fights they wanted to see when they wanted to see them. Okay, I disagree with that. That general sweeping statement is not true. All right, but he has some truth in there, because I can say that there is a case where there's an exception to that. So he has given the fans fights they wanted to see when they wanted to see them, but there is an exception in there, and that sort of dominated his legacy somewhat. So that's why that kind of is why people say those sweeping statements, but they're not true. Those sweeping statements are not true. He generally gave the fans the fights they wanted to see when they wanted to see them. Okay? But there's a caveat in there. So I just wanted to say that. The next point that I disagree with Stephen A. Smith about is that Floyd Mayweather, because people hated Floyd so much, they paid to see him lose. And that's how he made all this tons of money. I disagree. That is not the reason why Floyd Mayweather, because there are tons of people also who paid to see Floyd win. No. Let me just break down and why Stephen A. Smith is wrong. Stephen A. Smith is going on the guise that Floyd Mayweather was not a knockout puncher at welterweight. And so in order to get people to watch his fights, he had to get them to feel that someone could beat him and they would pay to see him lose. Right? But that wasn't Floyd Mayweather's strategy. Floyd Mayweather told you what his strategy was. He said it was to be flashy, outspoken, and flamboyant. And by doing so, by being outspoken, he would be different to all the other boxers around him in the area, and people would pay attention to him. And so anything he did or said, people would pay attention to him outside of the ring. And that attention separated him from the average fighter. And now, once he listened to, I don't want to say what it is, but I'm going to say it. Once he listened to the fans and what they wanted him, the fights they wanted him to fight, and he could deliver those fights. Now, whether you love him or you hate him, you are going to go see him fight. If you love him, you're going to see him win. If you hate him, you're going to see him lose. He got the demographic of both sets of people. He got the attention of both sets of people. And the reason he did wasn't because he was the villain. It was because he set himself apart from other boxers by being loud, flashy, and flamboyant. So you came to see Floyd win. If you came to see Floyd win, it could be because he was flashy and flamboyant. You could have gone to see Floyd win because you liked his skills in the ring and you like how he handled opponents. But you would go to see Floyd win for one of those reasons. So that's what made him a superstar. And that's what Floyd keeps on talking about. You can't just be a boxer who's knocking out people or beating people. That's not enough to make you a superstar. It's not just only what you do in the ring. You have to also have a character. You have to have personality out the ring. I can give you an example of one such person. Keith Thurman's one such person. He's outspoken. He separated himself from other boxers, and he needs to continue to be outspoken. He needs to talk to the media all the time. That's what Keith needs to do. He needs to keep doing it. I don't hear Keith anymore in the media. I don't hear him outspoken anymore. He needs to do it. You need to continue doing that to be able to be in the public's eyes so they remember you. So that whenever they see you with a fight, they're looking forward to your fight. Whether they love you or whether they hate you. And that's what Floyd Mayweather was able to do, which eludes Stephen A. Smith and eludes Max Kellerman. All right? Floyd listened to what the fans, who the fans wanted him to fight. And then he tried to make those fights. That's why I said Max Kellerman talking about him carefully selecting and choosing people is a bit dishonest. When Stephen A. Smith says that, you were paying to go see him lose, that was just part of the equation. Because they were saying that, he was such a a villain. He was playing the heel then. He was playing the villain. You wanted to see him lose because he was his personality. No, he put his personality out there. He was flashy and fly and flamboyant, and a certain demographic of people know about that lifestyle. So he was true to his lifestyle, but he did it. He did it so that he could be seen. He shouted it out. Because Floyd by nature, I heard, is not very loud and rambunctious person. He could be, but he's not always, right? So Floyd Mayweather, that's what he did. And that's how he got attention. And that's how he was able to have all his fights. Okay? But even so, when he was Money Mayweather, which was the personality he was, even then, he didn't really make serious pay-per-view until a certain point in time. So all that Stephen A. Smith has been saying, while it has some truth in it, he totally doesn't have the big picture. Let's get it all the way through. I'm going to show you my evidence to support what I'm saying. So we go to BoxRec. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't give you all the information because it just takes way too long for me to cover all of this. It's just, I mean, I went through articles. You can go and find out all these articles online, but I just don't have the time to do all of that. This video would be just way too long. So let's get into it. Floyd became his own boss in 2006 after he faced Zab Judah. So up to the point where he faced Zab Judah, he didn't really select who he fought. It was matchmakers with Top Rank, which was led by Bob Arum, that actually did the selections for him. Zab Judah was a former undisputed welterweight and the last disputed welterweight champion of the world. Zab Judah faced Floyd Mayweather, and they made arrangements to fight one another in 2006, but Zab Judah had a stay busy fight in between there, January of 2006. A stay busy fight in which he lost. He lost to Carlos Baldomir, an Argentinian fighter, tough, rugged, awkward, and hadn't been defeated in 7 years and 20 fights. When he faced Zab Judah, he was a cookie of a guy to be able to face. He was big, he was strong, he was tough. Zab had hit him with just about every punch he could. He couldn't stop Carlos Baldomir, who was really putting the pressure on Zab later on in the fight, and basically won the fight from him by unanimous decision. Carlos Baldomir didn't have a whole bunch of knockouts, but boy, that guy put on pressure. He was a pressure fighter, okay? And he had an awkward style. Floyd Mayweather, after he had beaten Zab Judah, was claiming that he was welterweight champion of the world because he had beaten the undisputed welterweight champion. That rubbed fans the wrong way, and they started saying that you ain't no real champion. He didn't beat the lineal champion. Carlos Baldomir beat Zab Judah. What are you talking about? That's a joke. You know, look how much Zab gave you trouble. And the fans started going to town, heckling Floyd. You know, at that same time, Bob Arum was calling Floyd a coward. Well, not in those words, but he was saying he was scared to fight Antonio Margarita. Why doesn't he fight Antonio Margarita? But Floyd wasn't with Top Rank anymore. And Floyd was trying to get a fight with Oscar. He was trying to get a fight with Sugar Shane Mosley. Mosley turned down Larry Merchant was saying, why don't you fight Floyd Mayweather, right? And Mosley had fought Francisco Vargas. He'd fought Francisco Vargas twice. This was the second fight in 2006. So he didn't want to fight nobody for the rest of the year. It wasn't that he was ducking Floyd, even though he was talking about his tooth, seeing the dentist. He just really didn't want to fight Floyd that year. That was what happened. So, anyway, and he was fighting at super welterweight anyway. So he had to come down to welterweight to fight Floyd. He wasn't ready for that. So, what happened anyway was, because the fans kept on heckling Floyd and telling him he was a coward and was ducking Carlos Baldomir, Floyd ended up facing Carlos Baldomir. And many people wanted that fight. Antonio Margarito's name wasn't even in the equation. People didn't care about Antonio Margarito. People cared about this fight with Carlos Baldomir. Floyd gave them the fight they wanted to see. They heckled him. They said he was ducking Carlos Baldomir. That's the real champion. That's the lineal champion. Because he was the lineal champion. He beat Zab Judah. And Floyd faced Carlos Baldomir to satisfy the people. He didn't pick Carlos Baldomir. The fans picked who he was to fight. And that was the motif you will see throughout Floyd's career, which is why he made such massive pay-per-views. But even so, he didn't make a massive pay-per-view off of Carlos Baldomir facing him. No. But when he faced Oscar De La Hoya, who he wanted to fight, but wasn't the reason why he got the fight. It was because Oscar wanted to fight him. He was now free of Bob Arum, so he didn't have to go through Bob Arum, but Bob Arum didn't have to block that fight. And because of that, he faced off against Oscar De La Hoya, who wanted to fight him. And Oscar took every single freaking advantage he could have done. Oscar chose the weight class. He chose the gloves. Oscar was bigger than Floyd. And it was the pound for pound king, which was Oscar De La Hoya, the pay-per-view king, which was Oscar De La Hoya, versus the pound for pound king, which was Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather was smaller than him. He was fighting at Oscar's weight class and everything. Oscar thought he could beat Floyd. Floyd Mayweather Sr. said he could beat him. But Floyd Mayweather Sr. didn't get involved. Floyd beat Oscar De La Hoya. All right? It is what it is. He beat him. He took Oscar's pay-per-view king title. And he also took the date Oscar fought on, which was Cinco de Mayo. All right? And then, after he beat Oscar De La Hoya, he was cool. He said, I'm done with boxing. And he retired. He resigned from boxing. He retired from boxing. And everybody was calling out Floyd now. Right? So, that was it. So, just so you know, the first 2 fights that Floyd fought under his own banner, he didn't pick his opponent. His opponent either picked him or the fans demanded that he face that opponent. The next opponent he faced, he was in retirement. And Ricky Hatton was calling him out. And Ricky Hatton had a history with Floyd because they were in the same division, which was super lightweight, also known as junior welterweight. For a while, Ricky Hatton ended up fighting Costa Tszyu and beating him. Floyd Mayweather fought Arturo Gatti, beat him, and Floyd moved up to welterweight. So Ricky Hatton always wanted to fight Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather actually always wanted to fight Ricky Hatton. But since he retired from boxing, he was just chilling. He wasn't trying to fight nobody. But Ricky Hatton called him out, and then the fans started saying that Floyd is ducking Ricky Hatton. He doesn't want to face Ricky Hatton. And so, 2007, Ricky Hatton knocked out Jose Luis Castillo. Stopped him in 3 rounds. Something that Floyd did not do. Floyd never stopped Jose Luis Castillo. Of course, it was a low weight class and all that, but still. So, because of that emphatic win that Ricky Hatton had, it caused Floyd Mayweather to say, all right, punk, I'm going to come out of retirement and fight you. So he came out of retirement to face Ricky Hatton. But again, Floyd Mayweather was not the person who initiated that. That was Ricky Hatton, and the fans wanted Floyd to face Ricky Hatton. Weirdly enough, the fans wanted him to face Ricky Hatton because they thought Ricky Hatton was a greater threat than even Antonio Margarito, than the rising Miga Cotto, who was rising pretty good. And Cotto also was in the same division as Floyd for a brief moment in time. Cotto had faced Zab Judah as well and had stopped Zab Judah. So Cotto was on the rise. So there was, but the biggest set of noise, because Cotto inherited basically Ricky Hatton's title. Okay, Cotto beat who to get the Ricky? I think it was either Kermit Cintron or Carlos Quintana. Okay, I can't remember which one. I think it was Carlos Quintana. He beat Carlos Quintana. He stopped Carlos Quintana to get the title, I think it was. And here's the funny thing. Carlos Quintana beat Paul Williams. There were some rising stars. So when Floyd retired after beating Ricky Hatton, Larry Merchant was, why are you retiring? We got some rising stars like Carlos Quintana, Kermit Cintron, Paul Williams. We got Miga Cotto. And then we got Antonio Margarito out there. But most people weren't clamoring for Floyd to face those guys like they did Ricky Hatton. And that's why Floyd faced Ricky Hatton. See, if the fans don't demand a fight, you really can't make no money. Because it has to be a fight the fans want to see. If the fans don't want to see it, you get an Andre Berto situation where people support you for your last fight, but ain't nobody coming to see your fight like before. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to make pay-per-view numbers. Ricky Hatton was a big pay-per-view number, showing that Floyd, now post-Oscar De La Hoya, because of Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd became this big pay-per-view star. So this is something, again, that Stephen A. Smith misses out and Max Kellerman misses out. Oscar De La Hoya gave Floyd the capacity to really rake in huge pay-per-view numbers because he inherited it from Oscar. And then, on top of that, Floyd was actually facing somebody everybody wanted to see him face. Ricky Hatton was undefeated. Ricky Hatton had beaten Costa Tszyu. He had beaten so many world champions already. His resume was crazy, okay? Ricky Hatton had beaten a number of people, and he went up to welterweight also, and he beat Louis Collazo, who was a tough guy. Shane Mosley couldn't drop him. Ricky Hatton dropped Louis Collazo twice. Louis Collazo almost knocked him out in the end of the fight, but the point is, nobody else had ever knocked down Louis Collazo, okay, until much later when Amir Khan knocked him down multiple times. So Ricky Hatton was a force to reckon with. And then he went back down to junior welterweight and he was wreaking havoc there. And with his last knockout win, because Ricky Hatton knocks out everybody. He stopped a lot of people. That's why they call him the Hitman Hatton. Ricky Hatton was a big also junior welterweight, and he would have been a big welterweight. So when he came in to face Floyd Mayweather, the fans were backing him. All of England came, and man, that was a hell of a fight. Ricky Hatton really put it on Floyd, but Floyd came back later on to stop him in the 10th round. Okay. Now Floyd went back into retirement, which is where he really wanted to be, and he stayed in retirement. And while that was happening, Miga Cotto rose up the ranks, and he was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. All right. Paul Williams beat Antonio Margarito in that space of time, and then got his ass beaten when he was trying to call out Floyd. He got beaten by Carlos Quintana. Came back, beat Carlos Quintana, and then moved up in weight. But nonetheless, he got his ass beat. Now, people wanted to see these fights, Floyd fight these guys, but it wasn't as commanding as like how they wanted him to face Ricky Hatton. Because all of these guys, they were now building their resumes. They were young fighters still. So when Miga Cotto started rising to the fore, it was really interesting. And then Miga Cotto gets his ass whooped by Antonio Margarito, who stops him. And so Cotto was starting to really become something and shake up the place. Was undefeated and everything. And then he got beaten. In the meantime, while that was happening, Manny Pacquiao rose up on the scene. He came all the way up from lightweight and faced Oscar De La Hoya and stopped him. Something Floyd did not do. And then after that, he went on to knock out Ricky Hatton in 3 rounds. So at the end of 2008, the following things happened. Manny Pacquiao rose into the ranks of welterweight and also junior welterweight. He made noise. And people were watching at Manny Pacquiao and starting to compare him to Floyd Mayweather. And the buzz was that Manny Pacquiao was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He had taken over the ranks of Floyd. Got Floyd's attention while he was retired and got people's attention, such that people started clamoring for Manny Pacquiao to face Floyd Mayweather. Now, in 2009, here's what happened. Early 2009, Shane Mosley faces off against Antonio Margarito. Stops him. Not only stops him, he knocks him out. He knocks him out cold. Alright, this is Grand Action Antonio Margarito. Now when this happens, it makes noise as well in the fighting world. Shane Mosley tries to get the fight with Manny Pacquiao, but it doesn't work out. So Shane Mosley's now looking for a dance partner. He tries to find different people, but all of them back out. Floyd Mayweather's in retirement. The noise is becoming more and more that Manny Pacquiao, they want to see the fight with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. It starts to simmer. People want this fight in 2009. Then, Juan Manuel Marquez calls out Floyd Mayweather while he's retired. And he's also at lightweight, and he wants to come up to welterweight and do what Manny Pacquiao was doing. And the fact that Juan Manuel Marquez was Manny Pacquiao's nemesis, which Manny Pacquiao just could not. He was the one guy Manny Pacquiao couldn't stop, and it always had a close fight with. It pulled Floyd Mayweather out of retirement. And he fought Juan Manuel Marquez. Now here's the interesting thing about the whole thing. He fought Juan Manuel Marquez because he wanted to prove a point that Marquez, being the same size as Pacquiao, was someone not only that he could beat easily, which Manny Pacquiao was struggling with, he wanted to show he was also the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He was the real one. And so he came back. Pacquiao pulled Floyd out of retirement because the fans were starting to say that Pacquiao, he's better than Floyd. And he'd give Floyd hell. Floyd came out of retirement because of that. Fought Marquez. But then Shane Mosley goes and busts into Floyd as he's doing his victory interview with Max Kellerman, trying to get a fight with Floyd Mayweather. He tried with Pacquiao. He tried with, I believe, Zab Judah. He tried to fight Zab Judah that year, and Zab Judah didn't want to fight him. So he tried to fight Zab Judah. He didn't get that fight. He tried to fight Manny Pacquiao. He couldn't get that fight. So he bum rushed Floyd at the end of his fight. Started talking about a fight with Floyd, and Floyd was like, no. As Max Kellerman is trying to talk to Floyd about Manny Pacquiao, which is what Floyd really came back to do. He wanted to come fight Pacquiao. So it was really funny. So at the end of the day, yeah, Floyd did choose Juan Manuel Marquez. He picked him because you know Marquez could have wanted to challenge Floyd, but Floyd had to actually say, all right, Marquez, I'm going to fight you, right? So Floyd picked Marquez to fight him. So in a way, he did carefully select that opponent. But he carefully selected the opponent not because the opponent was not a threat, but because he wanted to fight another opponent. So he was trying to show, this is how I handle Juan Manuel Marquez. This is how Pacquiao handled Juan Manuel Marquez. Y'all really think Pacquiao's the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world? All right, I'm going to show you. I'm going to fight Pacquiao next, right? But after he fought Manuel Marquez, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao then fought Miguel Cotto. Alright? He fought Miguel Cotto, who had lost to Antonio Margarito. He fought Miguel Cotto, who was now the WBO welterweight champion. And boy, he stopped Miguel Cotto, man. He dropped him twice and stopped him. So now, the fans was like, dang it, we gotta see Pacquiao Mayweather. And man, the fans went cuckoo crazy. And Floyd started saying racial statements about Manny Pacquiao. No, he didn't say nothing racial about Manny Pacquiao. Not that point. So they tried to make the fight in 2010. And this was the only fight that Floyd just could not deliver in a timely fashion to the fans. For the first time, Floyd Mayweather was unable to make a deal with Bob Arum and Manny Pacquiao so that they could fight. And so because of that, these guys, Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith, continuously say that there was some fights where the timing of the fight benefited Floyd and not the fans. This is the only fight in which that happened. Every other fight, when the fans demanded Floyd face someone, he did it in a timely fashion, and almost less than in under a year, he got that fight happening. I'm talking about the Conor McGregor fight is another one included, all right? So let's keep it going. So Floyd Mayweather tried to make the Manny Pacquiao fight, and it fell through. Pacquiao, we later found out, his team didn't want to agree to all the terms that Floyd's team was saying about the drug and urine testing. That was what it was all about. So, after all of that is said and done, Pacquiao goes on to face Joshua Clottey, and Floyd Mayweather Jr., he got no dance partner. It just so happened Shane Mosley finally was getting a fight with Andre Berto, which would have been really good. Undefeated Andre Berto versus Shane Mosley. That would have been excellent. Shane Mosley being the number one welterweight in the world because he beat Antonio Margarito. Cotto was the number one welterweight. Antonio Margarito beat Cotto. And then Shane Mosley beat Antonio Margarito. So Shane Mosley was the number one welterweight in the world. Dude couldn't get a dance partner. So he finally lands on Andre Berto. And then in 2010, the earthquake happened in Haiti, and Berto said, man, I got to go help my peoples in Haiti. And Shane Mosley had nobody again. So even when he bum rushed Floyd at the end there, he ended up with a good fight. He was going to fight Berto, which was great. I still want to see Mosley versus Berto, to be honest with you. I don't know why they don't just do it. But Shane Mosley, man, Berto was not available, so now Shane Mosley was left. And the media published, well, if Floyd ain't fighting Pacquiao, he could fight Shane Mosley. And then everybody heard Shane Mosley versus Floyd. The fans liked that. And even though the fans weren't climbing to see Mosley versus Mayweather, they remember Mosley bum rushing Mayweather. Mayweather was like backing out like, no, me, hey, hold up, Horsey. I don't want to fight you yet. Listen, man, I got other plans. So Floyd didn't initially want to fight Shane Mosley, but because it didn't work out with Pacquiao, he ended up fighting Shane Mosley. Again, Shane Mosley wasn't strategically picked. Shane Mosley wanted to fight Floyd Mayweather. Yes, Floyd Mayweather, he picked Mosley because he agreed to fight Mosley. That is true. He is the pay-per-view star. But it wasn't strategically picked. It was kind of driven by the fans once again. The fans were saying, man, Mosley versus Mayweather would be a good fight. If we can't get a Pacquiao fight, let's get the Mosley fight. So the fans were behind Mosley. And then Floyd, he said so many negative things towards Mosley, people just wanted to see Mosley shut Floyd up. So when Mosley rocked Floyd in the second round, everything went in an uproar. And it was a good pay-per-view fight because the fans were like, yeah, this is a good opponent. Mosley knocked out Margarito. Yeah, he gonna knock out Floyd. And he almost did. So the fans got their money's worth, at least in the beginning and then later on. And up to this day, people talk about Mosley when he hit Floyd because of that, right? My point anyway is this. The point that Max Kellerman and even Stephen A. Smith to a smaller degree is making is that Floyd cherry-picked his opponents, or that he strategically picked his opponents. But no, Floyd only picked his opponents if the fans, and they did, what they would do is little surveys and stuff to see what the fans thought. And from that feedback, they would know, okay, the fans want Mosley. All right, we're going to give him Mosley. You understand? That's how they did it. That's how Floyd did it. You understand? It was whatever the fans drive. Otherwise, you ain't going to make no pay-per-view money. You can't make pay-per-view if the fans don't want to see a fight. You think the fans wanted to see Floyd face Berto? That's why the pay-per-view numbers was the lowest ever in the history since Floyd versus Arturo Gatti, I think it was, or whatever it was. It was real low because the fans didn't want to see Floyd versus Berto. That was a cherry-pick fight, okay? Let's keep it going. Now, after that, after the Mosley fight, Floyd didn't fight again until a whole year after, and some months, okay? He fought Victor Ortiz. But let me tell you a little background to this. So, Berto, he was beating ass. He was the welterweight champion. He was WBC welterweight champion. He was kicking ass. And then he had this fight with Victor Ortiz, in which they fought at a catch weight of 145, I think it was. Victor Ortiz he's a devastating puncher. It was always exciting. It was always an exciting fight. But he had been knocked out by Marcos Maidana. It was an exciting fight too. He knocked down Maidana. Maidana knocked him out. But they thought he was a quitter. So when he came up to face Andre Berto, moving up in weight to face Andre Berto, nobody thought he would actually beat Berto. But Victor Ortiz, he was a sparring partner of Manny Pacquiao. So the other interesting thing was people were starting to talk about how much Berto was like Floyd Mayweather and how his fighting style was just much more aggressive. So they were thinking, what would be the matchup? It was kind of intriguing to think about a matchup with Floyd Mayweather. But people weren't really clamoring for Berto versus Mayweather. And Mayweather was interested in a fight with Berto. But then Victor Ortiz came and spoiled the whole party, beating Berto and becoming the WBC welterweight champion. So Floyd couldn't even face Berto. Floyd was trying to get the Pacquiao fight. It didn't work out. So since he failed, he didn't really have no other opponent out there to face at the point in time. He had beaten Shane Mosley. He had no more other welterweights there. Berto was the dude. Berto got beaten by Victor Ortiz. So he faced Victor Ortiz. He picked Victor Ortiz. All right. Now, interestingly enough, Floyd was picking Victor Ortiz in line with this. Victor Ortiz was Manny Pacquiao's sparring partner. Victor Ortiz was a southpaw like Manny Pacquiao. Victor Ortiz had quick feet, and he was quite explosive and quick. So Floyd picked Victor Ortiz on those merits. Manny Pacquiao was wishing Victor Ortiz the best. I think Pacquiao was also ringside when that fight happened. And in the end, Floyd, of course, beat Victor Ortiz. He was beating him up really bad. And after that fight, in the post-fight press conference, Floyd Mayweather said, Pacquiao, you're next. All right? Floyd had his eyes on Pacquiao since the Shane Mosley fight, since the Juan Manuel Marquez fight. He was trying to get a fight with Pacquiao, right? And you guys can always check this out. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere, okay? So Floyd was still trying to make that fight that the fans wanted to see. But in 2012, when they tried to hammer out the agreement, they couldn't meet the agreement. And so Floyd ended up not being able to face Manny Pacquiao for the second time. He had tried to make agreements directly with Pacquiao, but Pacquiao put him onto his manager, Michael Kantz, and it just didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, the headlines, you can go and look at this online, was that since the Pacquiao fight couldn't work out, Floyd was going to pick Miguel Cotto. It was between Sergio Martinez and Miguel Cotto. Sergio Martinez at the time was at middleweight. Miguel Cotto was at super welterweight. So he ended up picking Miguel Cotto to fight. That's how that happened. Yes, he picked Miguel Cotto. But Miguel Cotto had, since the Pacquiao fight, moved up in weight class, and he had beaten Yuri Foreman, Ricardo Mayorga, and he had also beaten Antonio Margarito. He had gotten his revenge. So Cotto was on a high. Anyway, Floyd fought Miguel Cotto. It was a hell of a fight. It was, I would say, one of Floyd's best fights ever. I think Cotto gave him a run for his money. And even though Floyd almost dropped Cotto in the final round, it was a hell of a fight. Hell of a fight. All right. After that, Floyd goes to prison. The reason Pacquiao and they gave for Floyd not facing them, why they couldn't face Floyd, was because they usually fight in June. And also they said that there was some stadium being built that they wanted built first before they would go in and fight Floyd. So it is what it is. It's all good. So anyway, Pacquiao faces Timothy Bradley that year. He loses to Timothy Bradley. And then Manny Pacquiao gets knocked out at the end of the year by Juan Manuel Marquez. And then all the Floyd versus Pacquiao stuff went down the drain. All right. Floyd came out of prison at the end of 2012. He was hoping that Manny Pacquiao would have a speedy recovery. Floyd had nobody to face. Cotto had lost to Austin Trout at 2012, the end of 2012, so Floyd couldn't even rematch Cotto. There was nobody on the horizon that the fans were dying for Floyd to face. He had nobody, so he ended up fighting Robert Guerrero because Robert Guerrero had beaten up Berto once again and busted up his eyes and all kinds of stuff. So Robert Guerrero was the one. Nobody really was interested in Floyd versus Robert Guerrero, but it was a comeback fight, so people watched it because they thought, well, let's see, Floyd was in prison. Is he any good? Does he still have the legs? They remember the Miguel Cotto fight. So they went and saw Robert Guerrero. But again, this was not a fight the fans wanted. Okay? The fans didn't want the Robert Guerrero fight. The fans didn't want the Victor Ortiz fight. The fans, they were interested in the Miguel Cotto fight, but that's not the fight they wanted. They wanted a Pacquiao fight. But then when Pacquiao was knocked out, they wanted no more Pacquiao fight again. So the fans started turning their attention to Saul Canelo Alvarez, who had been performing exceedingly well, had been undefeated, was beating everybody up, and was looking really good. And he came to the Robert Guerrero fight. He moved off from Floyd's undercard. He then faced the undefeated Austin Trout, who had beaten Miguel Cotto the year before, and he beat Austin Trout, dropping him as well. And then Canelo, at the end of that fight, and Canelo had been calling out Floyd Mayweather's name for a couple fights. Well, he called out Floyd Mayweather. He said to Oscar De La Hoya, make that fight. And when people heard that, people started jumping on the bandwagon. And the fans started demanding that Floyd face Saul Canelo Alvarez. This was the new Manny Pacquiao for Floyd. And Floyd was able to make that fight just a few months after. He was able to make the fight with Saul Canelo Alvarez. All right, so the fans drove that, and that thing was ridiculous when it comes to pay-per-view numbers because Canelo was bigger than Floyd, much bigger than Floyd. All right, and even with the catch weight, he still ended up being bigger than Floyd. All right, the dude was just, I mean, you saw Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is physically bigger than Floyd, and Alvarez is a huge guy. He's a massive dude. All right, so anyway, the fans drove the Canelo Alvarez fight. Now after that, in that same year, at the end of that year, Adrian Broner, who had beaten Paulie Malignaggi earlier that year, he called out Marcos Maidana. And people were saying, man, Broner, you shouldn't fight Marcos Maidana. He said he didn't want to listen to his manager, none of them people. He called out Marcos Maidana and there was a hell of a fight. And Marcos Maidana beat the crap out of Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner came up strong at the end of the fight. But in the end, Marcos Maidana won that fight, putting down Adrian Broner twice. Broner never even knocking down Marcos Maidana. But Broner does hit hard. And Marcos Maidana beat Adrian Broner, causing a huge upset because Adrian Broner was undefeated. He was 3-time world champion in 3 weight classes. He was moving to the ranks, beating up everybody. Paulie Malignaggi kind of slightly exposed him, but nobody expected Adrian Broner to lose to Marcos Maidana. I didn't think so. So because of that huge upset, Marcos Maidana crossed the ripples. People were saying, comparing Adrian Broner, just like an Andre Berto, to Floyd Mayweather style. So that when they saw Marcos Maidana have the success, the fans demanded that Floyd face Marcos Maidana. And they started talking about Floyd's a chicken, he ain't going to face Marcos Maidana. Lots of people didn't believe he would face Marcos Maidana, to be honest with you. Sergio Martinez himself was like, Floyd picked Marcos Maidana? Do you know what he's getting himself into? When the fans demanded it, Floyd put up a poll on his website because he was saying, is it Marcos Maidana or Amir Khan? And the Amir Khan fans went to his site and they outvoted Marcos Maidana, but on every other website, Marcos Maidana was the dude everybody wanted Floyd to face. So Floyd went with all the websites, and he picked Marcos Maidana. So it wasn't necessarily that Floyd selected Marcos Maidana. It was the fans wanted him to do that. So because of the fans, Floyd faced Marcos Maidana. The second time, it wasn't the fans. He said he wanted to give Marcos Maidana a second chance. I was saying he should have moved on, but they gave him a rematch. It is what it is, but it wasn't the fans for that one. Now, in 2014, at the end, here's what's interesting. In 2013, the end of 2013, at the end of 2013, Manny Pacquiao fought again, a year and something after his knockout loss. He faced Brandon Rios. So Manny Pacquiao faced Brandon Rios before Marcos Maidana faced Adrian Broner. I think the last fight of the year was Marcos Maidana versus Adrian Broner. And Manny Pacquiao outboxed Brandon Rios really badly. And he busted up his face and everything. And then Manny Pacquiao went on to face Timothy Bradley, a guy who had beaten him before, and he beat Timothy Bradley this second match. And then after that, he went on at the end of the year to face Chris Algieri, knocking him down 6 times. After seeing that emphatic win against Chris Algieri, the fans wanted to see Pacquiao versus Mayweather. They thought actually Mayweather was going to face Pacquiao at the end of the year, but that didn't happen after the Tim Bradley fight. But Pacquiao ended up going, into a catchweight with Chris Algieri and beating up Chris Algieri. So after that, Chris Algieri was a boxer. So people were convinced that, Pacquiao versus Mayweather would be, good. So the expectations were high. And so Floyd was able to make the fight with Manny Pacquiao. Finally, 5 years after 2010, he was able to make the fight with Manny Pacquiao. Didn't think it was going to happen, actually. In 2012, he told the fans, it's not going to happen. We tried everything. It's not going to happen. That's what he told them. And that's why he after the Cotto fight, he was telling people that. But at the end of the day, they were able to make it happen. And Pacquiao faced Mayweather. Mayweather beat Pacquiao. So that was a fight the fans wanted to see. But that was the only fight Floyd did not deliver within a year that the fans wanted him to face. That's the only fight on his resume. Of course, the fans didn't want him to face Andre Berto. They didn't care about that. But then the Conor McGregor fans, Conor McGregor had referenced Floyd in one of his statements. Somebody had asked him a question, if Floyd Mayweather, you would fight Floyd Mayweather. He said, and I think he said, I would fuck him up, something like that. Fuck him up or something like that. And so Floyd, when he heard it, he was retired, he made a statement about it. And people were talking about, this fight, is that a fight possible? And Floyd would say, hey, anything's possible. And from there on in, Conor McGregor, anybody asked Conor McGregor about fighting Floyd, Conor McGregor was like, I'd love to fight Floyd, of course. And the fans started talking about MMA, the MMA versus boxing fans started talking, and the boxing fans were like, Floyd will beat him easy. And the MMA fans was like, Conor McGregor would knock Floyd the fuck out. And then Conor McGregor started making statements up in England, in Scottish area, and he started cussing out about fuck Floyd and fuck this, and it ramped up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and of course, they ended up fighting less than a year after. Dana White was like, that fight will never happen, and it absolutely happened, right? And Dana White would go back later on record and say that on Floyd's side of the equation, he can't see how they kept back the mega fight with Pacquiao. It had to be Bob Arum that kept that fight from happening, because he said it was so easy to make a deal with Al Heyman and Mayweather Promotions that he couldn't believe that Bob Arum didn't make that deal with Pacquiao. And of course, Conor McGregor really wanted to fight with Floyd Mayweather. And I don't know if Pacquiao really wanted to fight with Floyd Mayweather either. I don't know. I guess he did. But at the end of the day, Floyd delivered on Conor McGregor fight as well, that the fans wanted. And my point is, you can't. I give you the example of Andre Berto. I give you the example of. I give you the example of Victor Ortiz. Okay, Floyd didn't make massive pay-per-view on the Victor Ortiz fight. Even the Robert Guerrero fight, the numbers there, I think, were less than one of the Maidana fight numbers. Okay. And that's because the fans didn't really want to see the Robert Guerrero fight. The intrigue in the Robert Guerrero fight was that Floyd was in prison. So how much of his skills and abilities did he lose? And then coming off of the Cotto fight, they were wondering if he was still light on his feet and if he could move around the ring. So it was those kinds of things. And then with Senior now training him, not Roger Mayweather, he did have a different approach to how he would fight. So at the end of the day, my point is this. This video is about this. Max Kellerman says that he carefully selected his opponents. I disagree. I think Floyd selected his opponents based on fan demand. The fans wanted him to face Carlos Baldomir. The fans wanted him to face Ricky Hatton. The fans wanted him to face Manny Pacquiao. All right? The fans wanted him to face Saul Canelo Alvarez. The fans wanted him to face Marcos Maidana. And the fans wanted him to face Conor McGregor. Okay, fans didn't want him to face Andre Berto. They didn't care about that. It was like, man, you could face a Keith Thurman or a Kell Brook. At the time, it was Keith Thurman and Kell Brook were the top guys in the division. All right, you could have faced one of those guys, or even Amir Khan. But I didn't want him to face Amir Khan, so I was glad it was Andre Berto, because Amir Khan was saying all kinds of crap and being disrespectful. So out of all his fights he had, 1, 2, at welterweight, that is, when he was his own boss. 2, 3, 4. We can include Shea Mosley. 5, 6, 7 of them. All right. And when he was his own boss, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Out of 14 fights, 7 of them the fans drove. All right. And listen, hold on a second. We had one that was the fans totally didn't want to see, which was Andre Berto. Fans didn't want to see the second Marcus Maidana fight per se. They weren't that enthusiastic. Didn't really want to see the Robert Guerrero fight, nor the Victor Ortiz. But the Miga Cotto fight they were interested in. All right, they were interested in the Miga Cotto fight, but it wasn't one which they were demanding to see. It was like kind of like a Shane Mosley fight where, hey man, if you pick Miga Cotto, that's a good pick. You know, we go with it because he just stopped Antonio Margarito. It's cool. But it wasn't something like Shane Mosley. The Shane Mosley fight was like, yeah, let's see Shane Mosley fight. That was different. All right. The Marquez was him picking Marquez. So, at the end of the day, he basically had one cherry pick fight, which was Andre Berto. The other fights were So, that's why I said he can't have complete control to dictate things. He has to go with the market forces of the fans. This is my point over and over and over and over again, right? He had to. The fans drove who Floyd Mayweather would fight next. Always. All right? People say, well, you didn't fight Erislandy Lara. Well, it's because Erislandy Lara didn't stir up enough people to want to see that fight, to heckle Floyd, to say, you're ducking Erislandy Lara. If everybody was saying that, you know, then Floyd would have made the fight. It's that simple. Okay? But ain't nobody really wanted, there wasn't enough people who wanted to see Erislandy Lara face Floyd. People like, well, he ducked Paul Williams. That don't make no sense. How many people were crying out, Paul Williams, he really needs to fight Paul Williams? There wasn't a whole bunch of people, and they weren't saying you ducking Paul Williams. They never said that. Right? Nobody was yelling for him to fight Sergio Martinez. Nobody was yelling for him to face Miga Cotto. Miga Cotto never called out Floyd, by the way. Never once. Nobody was crying out, oh man, Floyd should really fight Kermit Cintron. And you're like, who's Kermit Cintron? I'm like, yeah, that's my point. You know, it wasn't like people were dying to see Floyd face Carlos Quintana. You know what I'm saying? All right. So you have to understand that when you're dealing with pay-per-view, you have to face someone the fans want you to see. With Canelo Alvarez, he's facing Gennady Golovkin because the fans want him to face Gennady Golovkin. That's the only way Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin going to make serious pay-per-view. They're not going to make pay-per-view if nobody really wants to see them. I don't care how good the matchup is. If there's not enough people, if you don't have at least 1.1 million buys off of GGG versus Canelo Alvarez, then you wasted your time because you got to have, the fans must drive this. If the fans are dying to see Canelo versus GGG and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and not stream it, then you're good to go. But you got to have the fans drive. The fans drive who you fight next. And Floyd understood that sweetly. And because he was flamboyant and flashy and expressed what was in his mind to the public, he got all fans of boxing to go see his fights. People who hated him and people who loved him. But they still paid. And he said, whether you hate me or whether you love me, you're going to pay to see me. Because you know you're going to see me. I'm must-see TV. So that's how Floyd was able to make so much money. And then he positioned himself in such a way that he got the pay-per-view kingship from Oscar De La Hoya. And Oscar thought he was going to beat Floyd because he was the bigger guy. And a good bigger guy, according to some people, beats a smaller good guy. Right? But that wasn't the case there. Floyd was on a whole other level. And Floyd was used to fighting bigger guys all his career. So it was different. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point. So Stephen A. Smith, he has a piece of it in that, yeah, people did pay to see Floyd lose. But also, people paid to see Floyd win. That's why Floyd Mayweather was able to make so much money, because he was outspoken. So you either strongly agreed with him or strongly disagreed with him. Because I didn't pay to see Floyd lose. I was paid to see Floyd win. I like Floyd. I like what he did in the ring. Okay? I didn't agree with everything he did outside the ring, but I agree with what he did in the ring. And that's critical. Now, there are two other major points I want to make that I think are very important to this discussion. Stephen A. Smith, I didn't cover this. You didn't hear him say it, but this was in the video. Stephen A. Smith said that Floyd at welterweight wasn't knocking out people. He had brittle hands, and he was devoid of knockout power. So to get people's attention, he had to play the role of the villain, which is what got people to go see him. I disagree. The Money Mayweather persona was to separate him from other boxers. Muhammad Ali would say it this way. He said other boxers would say, but Muhammad Ali carved another niche where he would talk with people, relate with people. People got to know him, like him, and just because of who he was, they would go see him. Floyd did the same thing, but in a different kind of way. Floyd identified with his roots, was outspoken. Some of the things he said seemed controversial, but if you liked him, you liked the dude. If you didn't like him, you didn't like the dude. Either way, you were going to go see him. And that's the thing. Floyd had a magnetic personality because he was very strong in what he believed, and he was very vocal about it. He was a very vocal guy. Now, Keith Thurman is one of those people, like I said before. He should keep on being vocal. The more you're vocal outside of the ring separates you from the guys who just go in there, do their best, say they're humble, and they can fight. That's everybody. Most fighters are like that. But you got to be a little bit outspoken. Chris Eubank Sr., he's an outspoken guy. You look at, with Sean Porter, his dad is an outspoken guy. You look at Danny Garcia, his father's outspoken. That separates these boxers from other people. And you talk, you're confident. You talk the talk and you back it up. It makes you a kind of enigma, and people watching to see when you'll fall or what will happen with you. All right? Adrian Broner was another one. And you don't have to be negative to be outspoken. All right, you just have to separate yourself from the others. That's what makes a superstar. You also have to have the right dance partner to get to superstardom, but that's another story for another day. So Floyd understood that. He understood you need to have the right dance partner. You need to be outspoken, right? You gotta back up what you say in the ring, and that's the formula that he used. Okay, and that's what Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, they don't tell you the whole story. All right. Now there's one more thing I want to say. So Stephen A. Smith was saying because Floyd didn't have knockout power, he had to find some other way to get people to draw. I would like to cite that Willie Pep, one of the greatest of all time, didn't have knockout power. Okay? He wasn't stopping people left, right, and center. Okay? People came to see Willie Pep because of his defensive skills and his ability to outwit his opponent. Okay? Another great fighter was Nicolino Loche, a great Argentinian fighter, known only and solely for his defense. All right? When I tell you this guy was about defense, he was all about defense. His offense wasn't that great. All he loved to do was make people miss, and he was a big attraction worldwide. Okay? Pernell Whitaker, Sweet Pea, was known for his defense. Okay? He wasn't the greatest offensive fighter, even though in some fights he put up some serious numbers when it comes to offense. But he wasn't the greatest offensive fighter. He was a defensive fighter. And people drew just to see Pernell Whitaker fight. So when you say, and he was pound for pound #1 fighter in the world as well. Okay? When you say that Floyd Mayweather, just because he didn't have knockout power at welterweight, that didn't make him a draw, it's not being truly honest. Again, Stephen A. Smith is leaving out a lot of stuff. No, Floyd Mayweather, while he was a defensive fighter, and his skills in the ring was something to behold. And it wasn't out of style. It's just that Floyd added an extra element by separating himself, using the Ali formula, separating himself from other boxers. Okay? So it's a point of education I just like to share with people, because a lot of times I listen to Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, and they have pieces of the truth in there, but for the most part, they misunderstand Floyd Mayweather. For all of his dealings with Floyd Mayweather, Stephen A. Smith still missed the boat on what Floyd Mayweather has been saying all along. And I'm going to address one more thing in my video when I get the chance, which is that of Floyd Mayweather being TBE in the ring. You know, Max Kellerman likes to say that Floyd Mayweather is TBE outside the ring and in the full game of boxing, and he says somebody else can take TBE inside the ring. I disagree, and I'm gonna tell you why. All right, but not in this video, because this video is long enough as it is. So I just wanted to break that down in this video for you guys. I took my time. This video could have been ridiculously long, but you guys can go online and look at the articles I was talking about. They're all over the internet. That's the nice thing about the internet. It has a history, so you can always find these articles and see what I'm saying is very true. On that note, you guys have a great one.